Hafa day, everybody, and welcome to the after party. I'm Sabrina Salas Matanane. With us tonight, of course, our co-host, Chris Barnett. And we have William Parkinson with us and former Senator Fernando Esteves. Thank you guys for joining us. Lots to talk about.
Let's just jump right into that BPT. That's something we were talking about before the show. So Senator James Moylan, who's kind of, I like to call him the real minority leader. He kind of came out with this, and then it was moving right along, and then Auntie Lou up at Adelup kind of put the axe on it.
Well, let's be clear first. Remember, it was like one of the first bills out of the gate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I wouldn't even really, to be fair, it wasn't moving along.
Okay.
I mean,
you're right. They're stonewalling it.
I think that's what happened. I think that's what happened, and they were only able to delay for so long because it was out there.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's out there. It had a lot of support, and I think it's kind of surprising because if you remember back on the campaign trail, it was a very different mood, different message with regards to the BPT and the tax increases. You know, and for the record, you know, if anyone forgets, I did not vote yes on the permanent tax increase. So don't get it twisted. I was no from then. I'm a no till now. Those tax increases aren't going to be a benefit. We still need to look at cutting.
Well, if you think about it, though, Lou's in a really, really tough spot because these Trump tax cuts have decimated the Guam budget. So brass tacks, we do need to find a way to pay for it. And somebody at one of the public hearings, he made the point that a majority of the Trump tax cuts are only going to the riches of the rich. So I do agree that we do need to repeal the BPT because the BPT affects everybody. It affects the small mom and pops. But if we repeal it, we need to raise taxes on the richest among us and get them paying back their fair share because they did just save a lot of money on the Trump tax cuts.
This is something you said in the campaign, but Senator, I just wanted to kind of make light of something you said. So you mean to tell me Governor Lou said one thing during the campaign and is now doing another?
No, exactly.
Now that she's in office?
And I remember, you know, the same plea came out with the previous administration about the Trump tax cuts. You know, I bought it in the, you know, when they were talking about a temporary increase with real talks about converting to a sales tax, which we know would have been beneficial in the long term, would have helped with collections. But really the main message was, no, we don't need to raise taxes at all. Let's just focus on collections.
Right.
And, you know, we're 7 months in, and I understand, right? You know, give it a little bit more time and we'll see what happens. But I think the tone and the message, the very strong message not to repeal, is not there. But I would have to disagree that we're in a tight spot because we're not, right? With the 100% matching that we're getting from Medicaid, right now, government of Guam has a bubble. They have a bubble that was not expected,
right?
And it's a result of President Trump signing the emergency declaration and allowing the 100% Medicaid, Medicare reimbursements. We should be looking at that bubble as a way to invest and reduce costs,
right?
As opposed to now, okay, we have the increased taxes, now we get this bubble. So if we spend it all, when things go bad again, we're not going to have
that's
any
just typical
rainy day.
Guam.
But that bubble doesn't go to the general fund, you know, that's allocated for Medicaid, you know, those are healthcare costs.
No. It's 100. So the way it was like even at a 50% or lower reimbursement, which means they'll give us 50% for every dollar we match on Medicaid, Medicare. Now it's 100% match. So we still put out, but they're reimbursing 100%. So
Right,
it is
so they can play
additional.
with that money.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it is additional revenue.
Yeah, and what I thought was interesting is if the governor had said, let's keep the BPT in place, and she was doing things to actually reduce the cost of government or make cuts, it would kind of make sense. But when you tell the business community to just bite it, and you know they're paying people record salaries, they're traveling, there's just a lot of questionable expenditures going on in the government. I don't think it sends the right message. And you know, we had talked before the show, and you said it was ballsy of her to say, you know, she doesn't want to roll back the BBT. But I disagree, because if that money was going to something progressive, like maybe helping the poor, like I haven't heard this administration say 2 words about poor people or the working poor. And it's really it hits me because, you know, we get a Democrat in and you think you see a little bit of a change of pace. So if she was saying that we need this money to kind of like flip it back and help different programs, it would make sense. But instead, what are we seeing? We're seeing DOE's budget get cut.
Yes.
We're seeing public safety's budget get cut. Guess whose
Additional
budget
hiring.
is? Guess whose
Well,
budget's not
hiring,
getting cut? Adaloop's
Yep.
budget. Yeah. So I just I think that's really where it doesn't sit well with me.
Well, I wouldn't have. I mean, personally, I wouldn't have an issue for it, right? I've said it before, right? At least the way I came up. Say what you mean what you say. If you, from the get-go, believe that you can do something positive with this money, and you believe that it being spent or the tax increase being spent appropriately would fit your agenda and what you want to do, then that's what you sell, right? But when you say that, okay, we don't need the tax increase to do everything we need to do, and then you keep it, that's a very, very different story. But then we can also look on at another point, is maybe everything the previous administration was saying about the needed revenues in government of Guam was accurate, despite what the opposition was saying at the time.
Yeah.
So a lot of different ways to look at it, and I think they need to just come out with a very specific message addressing the change in heart and the change in tune.
Right. I also think it's another interesting point is Senator Moylan. I mean, here's a guy who was actually on the Chamber of Commerce board, pushing these moves for the chamber, pushing these moves with the build-up. And it's just kind of funny. I had one of the activists say, like, hey, why don't you call it conflict of interest? Well, is it, do you think? Or is he just doing what a Republican's going to do?
I think he was, because that was his promise from the get-go, and that's the thing, right? You can't really call it from a conflict, because he said he was going to do it when he ran.
Yeah.
He stayed consistent, and now he's pushing it through. I mean, that's I think what people expect. Whether you agree or disagree, I think that's actually a good move. You don't have to agree with what he wants to do, but at least he's staying consistent on what he said he was going to do.
He's not doing a 180.
He's not doing a 180.
Well, just because you're out in the open doesn't mean the conflict disappears.
Right.
You
True.
know, like if you air out your dirty laundry, it doesn't make it necessarily okay. So I think there is an angle to look at where there is a conflict.
Or
of
maybe
interest.
not necessarily a conflict, but you can understand the motive behind him wanting to do these things.
His motive is clear as day, for sure.
But that's what a representative democracy is.
Sure.
Right? He was they're Godzu.
Yeah.
Nobody's like disenchanted that he doesn't, because he even put himself as there representing the business community.
Right.
So I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Or technically everything can be a conflict, right? You can't be a nurse and
Sure.
talk about
Yeah,
healthcare,
yeah,
can't be a teacher,
Yeah.
talk about education. But I think there's a lot of benefit to rolling back the BPT or converting it to a sales tax that we can actually start getting track record on, and then convert the entire GRT. That was what the discussion was, but that kind of all just disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
A sales tax would be just so detrimental to Guam, especially with the tourism economy. Like, people come to Guam knowing we don't have a sales tax. I remember when I was a younger fellow in high school, we had people putting the GRT on the receipts, and
Right,
people were
yeah.
thinking it was a sales tax, and we had all sorts of problems with our PR because of it.
I mean, there are a lot of different things they could do. I mean, if you go and travel right now to places, they don't apply the sales tax, or you show your passport and they'll do the exemption. But there's a lot of the shopping that the tourists take advantage of, like duty free, I think is a lot of I mean, if you look at things with GVB, it's about the American goods. It's about what they can buy at affordable prices in Tuman. And most of those places are duty free. So even with the sales tax, it's just a matter of the language. They'll still continue to be duty free.
Right.
So I don't think that's really kind of a deal breaker.
If we really wanted to stimulate Guam's economy, we need to follow Joe San Augustine's route and raise the minimum wage.
Raise it like $10.
Raise it
That
to,
would stimulate the economy.
Raise it to like $15.
No, I'm saying raise it an additional $10.
15
17 would put us
Right,
actually to
yeah.
Australia. That
Right,
actually
yeah,
wouldn't be a bad idea. I would, but the thing is, for businesses, the number one thing a business could have is well-paid customers,
Okay.
because well-paid customers buy more, and buying more is good for business. So if we want businesses to thrive on Guam, the people that go to businesses need to have the disposable income to spend at them.
See, but you're only talking about one particular business model, and that's retail. What about service-based industries? Do more people spending money or buying products, does that help a plumber? No, that doesn't help a plumber. And the thing is, if you raise his costs, he's going to have to raise his prices. It doesn't exist in a vacuum, right?
Right.
Oh,
And this
absolutely.
this discussion could go on for hours,
Yeah,
so
sure,
we want to
sure.
move on to the next
Sure.
topic, Bree.
Yeah, let's talk about war reparations.
Oh, yeah.
We heard after the whole attack in Manila, there was this press conference about we're going to pay out war reparations, this local effort, while Michael St. Nicholas was working in Washington. And so, I mean, what are your thoughts about what's transpired since then? I mean, the House, I believe, voted to pass H.R. 1365?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought it was a good idea that the local government was taking the approach. I mean, I suggested it even before the last election. As soon as we realized from day one that it was going to come out of our own pocket, you know, then that's when I would raise the questions. Well, if we're paying for it, why are we waiting? Let's just pay it ourselves. Especially, most people don't know this, is that the federal government is taking out somewhere around 5% of the Section 30 funds, right, of that allocated to administer it. So actually, we're losing money from we're
The
paying
ultimate
them.
irony.
Yeah, we're paying them to issue war reparations with our own money.
Yeah.
So
And we're acting like it's some kind of historic landmark victory.
and that's why we can't necessarily. I mean, it's still a victory because.
Yeah.
You know, if we knew it was going to turn out this way 50 years ago, we would have paid out the Manamku or the war survivors back then. They probably weren't even Manamku,
Yeah.
right? But we know this now. So any effort to get it out faster, right? It passed the House. We don't know when it's going to get through the Senate and when it's going to get signed. So any effort, I mean, because we're talking days here, right?
Right.
Literally, a war survivor could potentially die any given day.
Sure.
So nobody should be keen on waiting, especially for the sake of getting credit or being written down in history.
But that's what I didn't like. I can see why they would want to pay it locally, and I felt like it was a noble gesture for them to come out, whether it was a distraction from the machete attacks or not, for them to come out and say, hey, you know, the urgency is real. Let's try and pay these survivors by Liberation Day. What I didn't like was the the back and forth between St. Nicholas and the administration. And then I didn't like how when the administration realized that paying it by liberation wasn't going to be a thing, they kind of just like put the covers over their head and, you know, didn't want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, and that makes it appear, I mean, I don't really know what they're thinking, but it makes it appear disingenuous, right?
Yeah.
Because, again, I thought it was a good idea at the time, like, let's just get it out as soon as possible. Hey, if you get a little PR out of it by doing it as a grand gesture on liberation, so what? But yeah, the bickering back and forth, you know, we didn't need that, right?
Yeah.
If we all agree that we can't wait another day for the war survivors to get their benefits, then let's do it. If Gov Guam has to figure this out for the next 10 years, the reimbursement with the federal government, then you know what, let's do that. Wouldn't be the worst thing we had to do.
But we had St. Nicholas saying that the sky was falling and saying that any local effort, I mean, it felt like it was a scare tactic. Any local effort would jeopardize payments that were already in the process of, being adjudicated through the federal effort.
And we just don't know, but we do know the money's available.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because we're the ones paid for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think all of that could have been figured out,
Right.
you know, afterwards. But I think they still should move forward with the effort because anything could happen in the Senate, right? The Republican Party of Guam is moving to get traction in the Senate and with the president to try to streamline it. But then again, you know, it's out of our control. It's still within the federal government. So we don't want to like be sitting on our hands if something were to happen or something were to go wrong and be like, dang, we should have.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Yeah. Well, do you think that for Congressman St. Nicholas that this is the win that he needs for his reelection? Is he beatable now?
No, I don't think he's beatable. I think this was the win that he needed, just because the previous delegate dropped the ball so hard. Like, this is a problem. He's picking up the fumble and scoring a touchdown with it. It's not the prettiest touchdown, but it's a touchdown.
And he's getting all the credit.
And he's getting all the credit.
Right.
Let's
So
be
this is a
very
big
careful
win
here,
for him.
right? Because the previous delegate was a Democrat,
Right.
Yeah.
right? And you know, it's even been said and admitted to that the Republicans, not just on the federal side, but the Republicans of Guam, have been instrumental in pushing this forward, right? So it's not necessarily like, okay, you had to win. It was a Democrat before, it's a Democrat now, but both efforts have been led with the Republican Party
Frank
of
Blas
Guam
Jr.
at the
and-
forefront. Yeah, absolutely. He's been leading this charge for decades.
I don't think I heard his name mentioned in the thank yous.
No, probably not. But you know what? We know where the work was done. We know where the work happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we know, but does the congressman know? On to the next. What do we got next, Bree?
Well, I think some of the other big issues that we've been seeing in the news has been the problem that we on island of illegal dumping.
Oh yeah.
And
Huge problem.
yeah, it's
Crazy.
I don't know. I see it as a crisis because anywhere
do
you
too.
turn,
I agree.
it's
I
just
ran my
terrible.
platform on it. Heck yeah, I see
Yeah.
it as a crisis.
You know, we
And
haven't
so
heard
when-
much from the administration.
Yeah, I was
about
going to
it.
say, having said that you ran on that platform and not really hearing a whole lot from the administration. I know you talked to Josh,
Or the
the
legislature,
lieutenant
for
governor.
that matter.
Right.
I mean, it took me months to get the environmental chair to come out and, you know, I mean, not to get her to, but I just felt like reporting on this issue, which it is a crisis. I mean,
Yeah, it's so
and
bad.
no one was biting on it.
Well,
I mean,
there's two things the legislature can do, or three things. They can appropriate money to solve it, but we would need to know what that solution is and if money's going to solve it, right? Or they can take the existing fines and make them extremely harsh, or find something a bit more holistic to try to figure out. That's policy-wise, because in terms of it, whether illegal dumping is legal or not, it's illegal. So
Right.
for the most part, the legislature has made their will known. It's all a matter of enforcement, and I think maybe they're working on it in the background, but that's why it's so critical that the administration starts speaking on it, because the ones that are responsible for enforcing it and executing the law, they need to let the legislature know what they need to solve it, if they need anything.
You could tell the mayors are frustrated. I mean, in Chico alone,
Oh, yeah.
there's only so much they can do. And then you covered the story with Senator Rigel. He did a cleanup,
Oh,
then
yeah.
Brutal.
it wasn't even cleaned up, right? The
No one
trash.
picked up the trash
yeah.
bags.
Ugh. I could
and
just
then there was
imagine
a
his
fire
frustration.
there, dogs got it and everything. It looked worse than it did before he cleaned it up.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
and that's not their fault. You know, they had
Yeah.
an agreement with the mayor's office, and the mayor did not follow through. Actually, I hold the mayor responsible for that, because he should have told them, like, hey,
Right, yeah.
like we need a little bit more help. You guys got us 90% of the way, but we need more.
But I think he would, the vice mayor, well, the mayor didn't want nothing to do with it. I mean, she was like, nowhere. The vice mayor came out and,
I have to
mean, he
say-
felt bad.
I
Yeah.
really give kudos to Clint because,
Yeah.
you know, when you hear about cleanups, you usually hear, oh, we're going to go along a Marine Corps Drive.
Somewhere where there's not really a lot of
right?
trash, right?
But he went
Yeah.
down,
Yeah, nitty-gritty.
right.
Yeah.
And the pictures he was sending me, it's like, where are you cleaning? Like it's some back road, right? And
back
The
road?
Hookah pipeline.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Hookah pipeline.
And,
So-
and that's been historically
No.
Right,
yeah.
an issue. And I think when I've talked to members of the community, one of the big issues is, well, one, the police are already busy enough patrolling the streets. But these illegal dump sites, and I don't even think cameras are going to help. What they need is some kind of monitoring, or even, you know, potentially the mayors can get the neighborhood watch to do it, because it is a crime, right? It might not be the crime people are used to, home robberies or anything, but I
Right.
think maybe the neighborhood watch could take shifts. There's a lot of things that the executive branch could probably do to facilitate this within the community. But what we do know is, aside from your, you know, everyday litter bug, the illegal dumping is mostly happening at known dump sites,
Right.
Yeah.
well-known dump sites that constantly keep getting cleaned up
Yeah.
and constantly keep getting dumped on.
Yeah, and these
Well,
are,
there's an underlying problem, though, is that people cannot afford their garbage bill.
Right.
And when you can't afford your garbage bill, the only thing to do is dump. The garbage doesn't stop accumulating.
Right.
So we do need to go back. There's no free market solution to this problem.
Well, let's be fair, though.
There's no free market solution
let's
to this
catch
problem.
the illegal dumper and let's ask them, why
Yeah.
are you illegally dumping? Is it? Because right now we don't know who these people are, or we know who these people
We
are.
know who these people are. These people are our neighbors. These are the people living in our community.
Because I haven't met one yet.
There are
No.
what, 10,000 customers on
yeah, so that's the
thing?
number that, in covering this issue, I mean, to the death, really. Guam EPA, one of the solid waste guys said, hey, Chris, you know, there's, for example, 80,000 utilities customers, power, water, but there's only like 10,000 trash customers. So there's a huge gap in the number of, so they're talking about things like making trash service mandatory, or, you know, a lifeline
And
rate.
you could do that, but there are a lot of other factors you have to consider, right? For like, let's say a utility company, like each of the apartment units will
Right,
be metered,
right.
but a dumpster is shared by the complex.
Sure, yeah.
You know, there's
Yeah.
a lot of different things we gotta consider. You know, we can't just use like random numbers.
Yeah.
But we do gotta get down to the problem. If we could try to make it affordable, but we just went through receivership. right? We know that the price
So
is
they can't
paying-
really play with the rates.
Exactly, and there's a bond on it as well. So we know what it costs to do it, but then we just have to look at ourselves that it was only a matter of time before we had to pay the piper. You could only keep rates low, impossibly low, for a long period of time before capital improvement doesn't happen, and all of these other things that eventually need to happen. And so we're just having to pay for it all now, whether it's utility rates that
Right.
are up or whether it's trash service that's
So
up.
what about these dumps on back roads and hidden corners? What about the heart of Tumon, our tourist district? I mean, we found a
Oh,
dump at this
yeah.
parking structure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was crazy.
And you knew who the
Crazy.
property owner was.
Yeah, so we've got this one property owner with 2 problem properties in Tumon, and
And that's tough, you know. I mean, you could be a property owner, but you own the property. It's like, even let's say you had an apartment or a duplex, and your tenant's just trashing it. You know, if you're a property owner, you can't necessarily be there all the time.
Right.
Or you can hire somebody to try to go help manage the place. Potentially, it might be impossible if the minimum wage goes up to $15. So all of these things come into effect, right?
People pay their rents on time with $15 an hour.
all right.
So you know, a lot of things to consider with that. But I mean, I feel for the property owner. I
I don't.
understand it's his. I mean,
I don't, because it's like, you're a property owner. What kind of businessman are you that you have 2 huge abandoned properties in Tumon?
Yeah.
well, what I talk about is the general sense, right?
Sure,
If we're
yeah.
being fair, what if it's not a property owner with 2 expensive properties in Tumon?
Yeah.
Right? Is it still fair? You know, do we look at it, right? Do we look at it just like, oh, I assume you're rich, so I'm going to give you a harder time?
Oh.
You know, fair is going to have to be fair. So if we're going to come up with policy requiring the property owners to have some kind of trash service or steeper fines, then we're going to have to be fair across the board, because we don't know what anyone's individual situation is. You know, could have been the worst investment of his life that he's stuck with. We
Twice.
just don't know. Twice. Right? But yeah, it's definitely a problem. I'm really surprised that they've been quiet on it. The
I go,
administration's
you know,
been
we
quiet.
asked the governor about it, and she was basically like, "Oh, check the
Passing
mayors."
it to the mayors.
It's
Oh,
just not a
no.
glory issue, you know. I just can't see the owner of a bank being into addressing.
It's not a glory
Illegal
issue,
dumping.
but it was
I just-
such a huge issue.
Josh, now Lieutenant
Yeah, I
Governor
think he
Josh
acknowledges
Honorio.
that it's
Yeah.
a problem, and he's the chair of the Island-wide Beautification
He is.
Task Force. So I'm kind of just waiting to see. So what are your ideas? What initiatives? What programs? Hopefully, we're going to be implementing to address the problem, this crisis.
Remember, I went
So-
on a cruise with
Yeah.
him, and he had said that. I said, I think we need to bite the bullet. Like, damn, we spent all this money and all this other stuff. Why can't we spend money on a task force that cleans these sites, that maybe provides a dumpster on certain days of the week? You know, it doesn't seem to me to be as complicated as
I
they
think
make it.
The lowest cost solution, because I've looked at this issue. Granted, I ran out of time, but something I was considering, you know, I weighed the options of heavy fines, which are not good because the people who can't afford it are not going to be able to pay it anyways.
Right.
And I think with the fines, people are less inclined to rat, right? If it might be a friend, might be a family member, they don't want to hurt them in the pocketbook. But if we looked at a holistic approach, right? Hey, if you get caught dropping a bag of garbage, you're going to have to put on a orange vest and you're going to have to pick up 100 bags of garbage. You know, the punishment fits the crime, right? And we hope that will prevent the solution. But I think people will be more inclined for community reporting if they know it's not going to harm somebody or their family by the guy going out there to pick up the trash. And I think we look at that more as a community policing model, because it's, you know, there's a shame to it.
Sure.
And it's a powerful thing.
I
So
don't know.
just-
I think we're way past looking at the cheapest possible solution. You know, this is a serious problem that needs to have serious resources thrown behind it. We cannot do holistic approaches now because it's a crisis. You know, once we get it down to a more manageable level, maybe we can revisit those low-cost solutions like community policing. But right now, this is a huge problem that needs to be, we need a big mobilization.
So you ran on this. So what would
Yeah,
your
what-
solution be?
My solution would be to first stop the bleeding. The first step to stopping the bleeding is to stop people from dumping in the future. So we just have what's already out there. And the first way to stop people from dumping is to just pick up their trash. Just pick it up, like bite the bullet, pay the cost, and pick up their trash. Because you know what? It takes an awful lot of effort for for someone to drive all the way out to the back jungle to throw their garbage. And people are lazy by nature. And if you gave them the ability to throw their trash by just walk into their front door, they'll do that. Just pick up their garbage. Like, the hardest part of garbage collection is the manpower to go out there and get it. So if we could just pick it up, we're saving a lot in the long term in just hidden costs we're not going to have to do in the future.
That's actually not the biggest. I mean, putting it in the truck's not the hardest thing. The hardest thing is sorting the trash so that we're not putting things in the landfill that doesn't need to go in the landfill.
Right, and that's
We're
another.
That's what I said,
We're
labor.
not extending which will be worse at $15 an hour or more. But neither here nor there. 15. Neither here nor there. We expect it's a crisis. No,
I'm ready.
No,
I am ready anytime.
I can see it in your
When we
eyes.
show on Facebook.
When the examples come up. But I mean, who's going to bite the bullet and who's going to eat the cost? The current ratepayers who pay for their trash?
No, this just needs to be, well, for starters, I'd put it on the hotel industry, first and foremost, because the Tourist Attraction Fund, keeping our island clean, is a function of the Tourist Attraction Fund.
Wonder
Just
what
for
I would,
GDP would have to say about
I would
that.
rather spend our money cleaning up our island than junketing off island.
The
with that
hotels
money.
aren't the illegal
When you guys are
dumpers.
talking about trash, are we just talking about household garbage trash, or are we also talking about the white goods, the
All of it.
furniture?
Well,
Yeah.
the
we're
white,
seeing, 'cause
All right, the white goods and the cars.
There's money
That's
for
been
that.
there's money for that. It's
Right.
just been waiting for the proper processes to finalize.
we're talking
I've
the
been
revolving
hearing
recycling revolving fund.
exactly, and I remember fighting this issue
Yeah.
when they were just trying to give the money to the mayors. Right, I was trying to protect the fund, but it's been I had been insured numerous times that it's been sitting at the AGs waiting for their
Right,
final
right.
approval before they can start giving the money out. I don't know if it's finally been like 2 years later.
Yeah, I
if
think
the
that.
rules have
So
finally been
now
completed.
they're
They were
getting money
working
from
on-
Guam EPA, and
Yep.
then they need to tell Guam EPA this is what we're going to do. But my question is, like, going out to all these dump sites, you have abandoned vehicles, white goods, and then you have municipal solid waste, which they're not supposed to pick up with this money.
They're not supposed to pick
Yeah.
up.
So
with
what are
this
they going to
money,
do? Like,
correct.
get the washer? Oh no, leave those 20 bags of rotting trash.
Well, I mean,
get that
that's-
car.
but
I'll leave the other
that's how
stuff.
solid
Pick up
waste
the toilet
works,
bowl.
though.
Right, yeah.
You know, that's
Yeah.
how solid waste works
Sure.
because there's a cost associated with everything. Something with the white goods and the abandoned cars, there's some cost recovery in that
Right.
for the people who take that waste. But when it comes to the landfill, there's no cost recovery when it goes to the landfill. It goes to the landfill, that comes at a cost. If it's truly a crisis, I mean, I'm just crazy idea, but just throw it out there like what China did. They got their National Guard go out there and start monitoring these illegal dump sites.
Oh, why
you
not?
know?
I mean,
Yeah, why not?
I mean,
That's
I mean,
a
I-
fantastic idea.
I'm just saying, like, there's resources at their disposal.
And I kind of think that's what we have in common here. Is I think there's we have a whole government that we can tap to throw the biggest liberation. We can do all this stuff for Pride Month, for Mess Tomorrow. Then, God, we should be able to pick up trash.
But could someone go watch one of these dump sites for 2 hours a night on a shift?
I think so.
I-
Yeah.
I think so too, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not the governor.
Yeah, you're not.
Well,
Hey,
I'm
200%
hoping that
of
with
it.
the coverage of all these dump sites, that it becomes a bigger priority.
And that's
to the
kind of the
government.
goal. Yeah, is to just keep shoving it in their face until they do something about it.
Yeah.
Well, we are out of time.
wow.
I know that went by.
We didn't even
really,
get to the
quick.
build-up.
I know.
Oh, darn.
And
Yeah,
any
I'll
final
call you next
comments
month.
that you guys
Minimum
would
wage,
like to make?
round one.
Any final comments?
No, it's a good discussion. I mean,
Yeah.
again, these issues, they're not simple ones, right? You can go
Yeah.
for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
I think people just want to be reassured that the people and the powers that be are taking these issues seriously and are equally going for hours and hours, trying to figure these problems out.
We need to have some trash talk town hall meetings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another thing we didn't get to, the town hall meetings.
Yeah.
But,
Next time.
Next time.
Right, yeah.
time.
Well, closing thoughts?
Well, thanks for having me, and just pick up the trash. Just bite the bullet, legislature, raise taxes, and just pick up trash. Keep Guam beautiful.
Ooh, that's a loaded sentence right there. Hey, on behalf of Sabrina, my name is Chris Barnett, and thank you so much for watching the After Party. A couple weeks, we're going to do the social media version.
Yes, probably next week or later this week.
Okay, good.
So-
All right, so thanks for watching. My name is Chris Stadios.
Bye.
Closed captioning is brought to you by IT&E. Explore your world.